Russia suffers from the fact that their leadership still has the barbarian mentality, perfectly reflected by Josh Dolani's tweet. An excerpt from Hilaire Belloc, this man here. Barbarian hopes that he can have his cake and eat it too. He will consume what civilization has slowly produced after generations of selection and effort, but he will not be at pains to replace such goods. But don't be mistaken in thinking that Russia doesn't produce brilliant people. They do. In fact, Russia has produced the most brilliant scientists, artists, thinkers, and mathematicians in history. But it does not translate into the overall quality of life for the Russian people. A perfect example of this can be seen in Russian economics. They have over $75 trillion in natural resources. That is more than the United States and China combined. But Russia's economic output every year is about $2.2 trillion, less than a tenth of the United States. And in 1990, Russia was the fourth or fifth largest economy. Now they are the eighth. Yet look at China. Their GDP is almost $18 trillion. They have less than a third of Russia's natural resources, have dwarfed Russia in economic growth from 1988 to today. Both Russia and China had the same access to Western capital markets since 1990. China's economy grew by 5,650%. Russia's only grew by about 300%. So why did China's economy grow so much stronger and Russia's economy is the size of New York State? Remember that Russia is fully independent when it comes to steel, energy, food, and uranium. China is only, they have steel. The other three, they're heavily reliant on imports. Yet China is so much more successful, even though they have had many more catastrophes that have happened to them in the past 70 years than Russia. Because the Chinese mentality, especially behind leadership, is discipline, compliance, and a lot of sacrifice. But if you've seen any of my posts, you understand that even China, they've done a lot of great things. There are a lot of limitations to authoritarian rule. One of the reasons why America still maintains a huge innovative edge over China is that we have strong property rights. If we have a resource or we are really good at something, it belongs to us. It cannot just be taken by some government thugs. Yet Russia also does not have strong property rights, which means that Russia is lacking what makes China an incredible economy and also what makes the US such an incredible economy. How freely can capital and investment flow in Russia if there is no safe guarantee from the big bad gang that takes whatever it wants? But even beyond economics, the Russian system of leadership fails its people. Like I've mentioned earlier, Russia produces among the best writers and thinkers. And what does Russia do to these people if they disagree with the system of government? Look at Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He is one of thousands of great thinkers that was in prison during the Soviet Union for criticizing the government. And when it comes to imprisoned Russian scientists, you should look up Sharashka. Thousands of Russian scientists were taken and held prisoner to just produce scientific works, even though they were incarcerated. That hasn't changed. Last year, the Kremlin passed a law that imposes a sentence of up to 15 years in prison for journalists and activists who publish fake news about the war. Compare that to America, where everybody, even members of Congress, criticize Biden right to his face. Are they imprisoned? How many thousands of activists every single day express their disagreement with our government, with its policies, and none of them have gone to jail unless they have used violent force? During every single war that the United States has had, at least from the 20th century onwards, you have been able to vocally criticize it and the leadership behind it without anything happening to you. Because even though our system of government isn't perfect, we allow the freedom of speech, in essence, allowing the free flow of thought. A country cannot foster innovation and creativity if they are imprisoning the people who have enough free thought to disagree with them. It's also why countries like China and Russia rely on spies, theft, and other forms of espionage to advance technologically, because they don't have the innovative capacity to do it on their own. They take what someone else invents in a free-thinking economy, and then they try to improve it, or at the very least, reverse engineer to replicate it. But that doesn't discount for 1 second the contribution of Russian individuals to history. The reason why we have a periodic table of elements is Dmitry Mendeleev have electric arc welding, which is pretty much slagging metal and connecting metal to other metal by the use of electricity. We have Nikolai Bernardos to thank for that, even though he did have the help from a Polish engineer, Stanislav Olszewski. We have the helicopter because of Igor Sikorsky, which, he eventually emigrated to America to complete his invention of the helicopter. And why is that? Why do so many Russians still come to this country? Why do some of Russia's most brilliant emigrate here? While Russia's immigration numbers have definitely dropped compared to during the Cold War, you could see that it is on the rise again. By the end of 2022, over 370,000 Russians fled the country. In that same year, more than 23,000 Russian nationals attempted to enter the US through the Mexico border. In 2023, there were more than 10 times as many encounters with Russians at the US-Mexico border as there were in 2021, before the war. And I ask you again, why? Why is it that a country that is so blessed with natural resources and brilliant people, do they have such a problem with keeping their population and managing any kind of significant growth? It's because the Russian government cannot create nor maintain a system of rule that allows the free flow of wealth nor ideas to allow the country to prosper. The country also cannot manage a peaceful transfer of power. For the fact that Vladimir Putin has been leading Russia since 2001, when he was only supposed to be doing it for 12 years. And I'm sure you're going to say, well, Medvedev was president of Russia. That wasn't Putin. Okay, we all know that Medvedev was Putin's puppet. Putin has controlled Russia for 24 years, when he was only supposed to be doing it for 12. Now, this mentality isn't particular to just Russia, it's all over the world, but it is much more prevalent here than any other Western country. But I believe it is starting to grow somewhat in the United States. You could see that with the Trumpers, but also with the extreme left. They do not allow any disagreement. They do not allow any dissent. I am the Geo Husar. I wish the Russian people peace and prosperity. And in my opinion, it is only achievable by changing entirely the Russian system of government. Thanks for watching.